Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we're going to talk about the departure of John Murtough, talk about the urgency being stressed by the INEOS leadership in the last few weeks, talk about the manager, talk about recruitment, and on from there. So let's get into it. All right, so yeah, obviously the major kind of breaking news overall was that it was announced kind of as expected, but now official, that John Murtough would be leaving Manchester United at the end of this week. He's always been, since the day INEOS got in and reached an agreement, on his way out the door eventually. There was potential that he could stay in a different role, but he was never going to be the director of football or in kind of that capacity ever again. I realize my overlay here says Ashworth. Now I'm going to fix it while I do this. But in general here, really what's going on is this. And to talk about Murtough's time a little bit. I think that, in general, he gets judged not unfairly, but a bit unreasonably. It's a mixed bag. There's things that John Murtough's done well, and that doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't have done these things well who was more qualified to be in the position. But it does mean that he has done well. He was largely responsible for a big part of the youth scouting network that was set up prior to Brexit and getting people in. Would not have Alejandro Garnacho, would not have Willy Kambuala, would not have Ahmad and a few others without him. Those are important factors that we're seeing kind of pay off later on down the line. He did well in some capacities. Last summer, the transfer situation was really dire when you look at it. Starting the summer out, the Glazers had made basically no funds available, that there might be one deal. He lined these deals up and was able to push them through. Now, costs, how much was spent, overall planning, all of that, I think really poor. And I think that is because he was not a real director of football. For the most part, Murtough's role and job and what he did in that position was to do whatever essentially Ten Hag would do, that he could get approved by Joel Glazer, to get him whatever Ten Hag wanted approved by Joel Glazer. When Ten Hag was hired, multiple leading scouts from United quit because they felt that their input would be ignored. Essentially, Murtough worked pretty much joined at the hip with Ten Hag on getting what he wanted. He was largely responsible for the choice of Ten Hag, and that's why I find it kind of funny. Some of the accounts and some of the people who are extremely supportive of Ten Hag really wanted him in the first place. You have Murtough to thank that he joined. And at the same time, they highly criticize him, but he was the one who selected him, basically off of the information that was there when there were other people with different opinions. So it's a mixed bag. But at the same time, under the Glazers, there was probably no way for it to. There was never going to be a real director of football. There was never going to be anybody who was actually capable of making all the decisions. When Ollie was coach, when he was manager, there was almost a council with Marcel Bout, Lawler, who both have left now. One is at Newcastle. Ollie, Fletcher, I think it was Fletcher, and others, and they would convene on the right players to sign and targets and all that, but they were ultimately all pretty much wrecked by Woodward and Joel anyway. So even though it actually worked pretty well in the capacity that they identified some amazing targets and players, and the plan was good, it still did not happen. So, I think it's fair to say that John Murtough was not qualified to be director of football. He'll be judged as a director, but there's never really been a director of football at Manchester United before under the ownership. So mixed bag. Much like anybody who leaves United, under the Glazers, hard to judge, but certainly there's no doubt that he should not be in that position moving forward under new ownership. So he's not going to be, and this is all tied together. So let me get into the next thing, and I want to cover what's really going on here. So obviously, Sir Jim was present in the last 2 games, Chelsea and Liverpool, and as I understood it, and had been told, that was not really on accident. That was not really something that was just, out of complete randomness, but that he wanted to be present for certain things, to be present as an owner, and that the INEOS leadership is stressing, and I don't know exactly who they're stressing it to. I don't totally understand who they're talking to, because I don't know exactly who's leading, the negotiations for Wilcox, for example. But they were stressing that it is time to push ahead and make some decisions. They need to get moving on this summer and on next season now, in earnest. And big part of Murtough leaving is essentially they believe that Wilcox, things are going smoothly behind the scenes, and they expect that he'll be wrapping some things up with Southampton and joining within the next week or 2. That's the expectation, that it's going well there. In recent times, Dave Brailsford has been sitting in on a lot of meetings that John Murtough's been holding with scouts and other individuals to get a clear kind of picture of things, and not because he's going to be making decisions, but because he wants to understand what is happening, the data, everything that's been going, and I think at this point they want to move ahead with things, and they kind of want their own people making those calls, people that they are going to be putting in position to be doing the things that are going to be done. So Wilcox will be supporting that when he comes in, and they need to get that done. So that should be happening pretty soon and allowing them to kind of push ahead. With regards to Ashworth, as I understand it, they're also set to really kind of push forward on this. One of the things they've been stressing is that, they really have the situation with Newcastle's been really difficult and much more complex than they wanted it to be, much more tough than they intended, and taking a lot longer. And they're at the position now where, in a lot of ways, as I gather, they feel the season is almost effectively over. And it's time now that the big decisions, the big pushes, the big things have to be made. And you'll get different things from different people on this in terms of how they view this when it comes to the manager. But the basis of what I was told is that they really want these people in now to do what they need to do to have this set for next season. It's hard to recruit. They cannot go. They really don't want to be going into June not knowing or having finality on, is Erik ten Hag the next manager for next season, or is he not? And who is? They want these people in now to be kind of finalizing and doing the steps that need to be taken to settle things, essentially, in the way that they're going to be settled, so that it is set for next season and they know what they're doing for next season, and it's there in alignment with recruitment. Now, there may be no way that Dan Ashworth is in there. They wanted him to lead on this and to have a heavy input on Ten Hag, on other potential candidates and who might be the best person, all of that. He may not be in, even if they push ahead now until later. But a big reason for the push for Jason Wilcox is that at the very least, between him and Omar Barada, they'll feel they have enough there in accordance with what they want to make some big decisions or get some big decisions carried out. I'm from a very kind of high level area, I'm fairly certain at this point I know exactly what's been decided. There are still a few potential different outcomes from that, but they want to have people who are not themselves, not Sir Jim or Dave Brailsford, carrying out the things they need to carry out to move forward and arrive at, whatever the potential outcomes are, but arrive at ideally what they want. And I'm sorry to be a little bit vague about that, but I am going to be at the moment on that note. But I believe at this point they have decided what they want to do. Quite certainly, I believe they've decided what they want to do. But they're not the type of people to do things without what's the word for it? Without proper planning. They're not the type of people to do things just for the sake of it. They want to do things right. So either way, essentially, there's a big stress on getting the people in place because they feel like, with regards to the manager, that they need those people in place to be able to get to the outcomes where they want to get, and to be able to do it all correctly and do everything that they're going to do correctly and have proper input from people who are not them. And they also want the same for all the recruitment targets. They want the right people in place. They don't want to be sitting there assessing all of these recruitment targets and saying, yeah, that's the person we should buy, that's the person we should buy. They want some good people in there, and they feel that at worst with Wilcox and Barada that they would have a really good setup. With Ashworth, obviously, it would be ideal, but at least with those two, it would be good. And so a big push now to at least get Wilcox started quickly, and then hopefully still get Ashworth in by summer, where there's still a lot of time to do things, but they are set to move forward on that. From a recruitment standpoint, there will definitely be... it's definitely, from what I'm hearing, very much intended to be a club-led recruitment strategy. They're sort of finalizing a lot of the ways that they want to approach things. I think it's been strongly communicated that they're going to be signing the players on the basis of what they feel is correct, and that, again, a big part of bringing in and getting Wilcox in here and such is not that he's going to be doing the recruitment, but they want his input and alignment, understanding how they want to play, understanding what they want to do, and making sure that it is aligned where they end up going with recruitment. There's a lot of people that they know are intelligent when it comes to scouting, identifying targets, all of that. They want to make sure they have another very strong and involved voice in ensuring that it's all going to be aligned properly in Wilcox and in Barada. But they need, with Barada starting in kind of midsummer, he can be in there to help with making a lot of the signings, but the early steps that go into a transfer have to start getting done now. They've done a lot of the exploration and early contacts, but the next steps are moving forward with actually starting to line things up, and they want to have the right people in place as well to assess and assist with that. But very much big on the club-directed recruitment. And, I think that's also part of Murtough leaving, is that, his remit as the director has essentially been pretty much, again, joined at the hip with the manager. And that's not really the way that they're going to be doing recruitment moving forward. And so they want a lot of multiple voices in there, until Ashworth gets in, to where it's more of a balanced discussion based on the ideas of the club. So it probably will look or feel, until Ashworth is in there, a little more similar to how it was under Ollie for a little bit of time, even if it's just a few months in terms of how things are discussed. And and so that's sort of how it's pushing ahead right now, and where they're going next with all of this. It's kind of interesting times. A lot of this can sound a little bit messy at the moment, but it's not so much that it's messy. It's it was a mess. It was such a mess, and it's tangled to unweave it. And to unweave it mid-season is very difficult when you're pulling people away from other top clubs and things like that in the middle of the year. It's a mess. It's a mess for years that the Glazers left, but it's also a mess how long they left this takeover. If they had wrapped it up back in October and INEOS were in by November, we'd have everybody in place well ahead of time. We don't. And that has very little to do with INEOS and a lot to do with just the simplicity of the timing and how long it takes to put these things together. It is a mess, but they have clear ideas that they're pushing towards, and they really want things to get done now, and I think that they will. I think we'll see Wilcox in very shortly, and that'll allow the right steps to be taken in terms of the right assessments on the players, on recruitment, and on the manager as well. Moving to Gerard Braithwaite, obviously this is one I've talked about a lot in terms of interest, and what I want to say about this right now is that there's a lot of the makings of a transfer here that have not necessarily all, it's the type of thing where it still has to happen, but there's a lot of makings of it. I'll give you a situation where it didn't happen, was with Trippier a few years ago. There was conversations, there was interest, there was dialogue. He was telling people who's moving back to the area. I think he'd even got a cell phone. He was looking at houses. There's all sorts of things around a transfer, and then it didn't happen. And then, of course, he moved to Newcastle a few months later. So it's, there's a lot of those things going on with Braithwaite, where from around him, the deal, there's so many positive signs of it being likely. But obviously, and the interest from United is there. There's no doubt about that. Obviously now, really it's sort of one of those funny things that all that's left is to just actually go pay the money to Everton. But I bring it up in specific as well because obviously, Everton have another points deduction. And there's reports today that the 777, the takeover group, which has been a total mess, has delayed further on payments, on coming in, on all of that. And it appears like a disaster is forming. And as I understand it, they are going to need to sell early and raise quite a bit of money this summer to dig themselves out of some of this financial hole and avoid much larger penalties. So there's so many things that would indicate, Braithwaite will be sold. Amadou Onana will be sold, two of their biggest assets. And I think that it's worth keeping an eye on both of those simply because as well the circumstances surrounding it make it very likely that something has to happen there. So, this one, I just keep hearing more positive things moving forward into, the likelihood of a deal occurring here. So that's what I've got there. And so kind of in summary, again, yes, INEOS stressing urgency on getting their people in place. Part of the reason for Murtough departing imminently on that basis, they expect Jason Wilcox to be able to come in very soon. They're intending to push ahead with Ashworth and try to get him in as soon as possible. They intend and want and feel that between Wilcox and what they have and who they and their own and Barada, that they'll be able to carry out a proper process that they want to carry out in terms of the manager decision, as well as identifying and leading a club-led recruitment strategy. So yeah, that probably summarizes everything I rambled on about for 19 minutes and about 20 seconds. Okay, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and I'll see you in the next one.